What if the one person you finally let into your life was the one who taught you how much it hurts when someone leaves? I grew up in a quiet and empty kind of childhood. My mother disappeared before I was old enough to remember her face clearly. Because of this, she felt like a ghost in our home, someone who was once there, but no longer real. My father never liked to talk about her. It was as if he tried to hide her memory under his daily work, surrounded by grease, tools, and metal. Whenever I asked about her, he would only give a short answer and say she was gone, as if she had simply disappeared into thin air. Over time, I stopped asking questions and became silent, just like him. We lived in an old, worn-down house near a river. The sound of the flowing water was always there, day and night, like a quiet companion that never left. My father spent most of his time at his garage, working hard with machines. It was a place full of loud noises, metal clanging and engines running, but he carried that heaviness home with him. Every evening, he returned tired and quiet. He ate his dinner without speaking, almost like it was a routine he followed without thinking, and then went straight to bed. Most of the time, I was alone. I learned how to entertain myself. I read books to escape into different worlds, or I walked along the muddy riverbank, watching the water move slowly. The river did not care about anything, it just kept flowing. In a way, I found peace in that feeling. Silence became something safe for me because it did not expect anything. As I grew older, I began to feel uncomfortable around too much noise or too many people. Quiet places felt more natural, and I slowly started to trust silence more than human voices. At school, I felt invisible, like I did not really exist. I stayed at the edges of everything, watching other boys form friendships. They laughed and talked easily with each other, as if they were speaking a language I did not understand. I was always the quiet one in the corner. I finished my work carefully and quickly, and as soon as the bell rang loudly to signal the end of class, I left without looking back. Sometimes, a few students tried to be kind to me. They invited me to sit with them or tried to start a conversation. But I pushed them away. I acted cold and distant because it felt like protection, like wearing armor. I did not believe in close relationships. My father had taught me, without saying it directly, that people do not stay forever. Everyone who comes into your life will eventually leave. I believed this deeply. I found girls even harder to understand. They smiled, asked gentle questions, and tried to be friendly. But I did not respond. I kept my distance. I saw them change their feelings quickly, liking one person today and someone else tomorrow. To me, this made relationships seem weak and unimportant. Because of this, I chose not to let anyone get close to me. Instead, I focused on my studies and practical work. I believed that being alone was the safest way to live. As the years passed, my life slowly became more like my father's. I started working with him in the garage. My days followed the same pattern again and again. I woke up early, worked hard all day, ate a quiet dinner, and then went to sleep. My life was not full of sadness, but it was not full of happiness either. It was simply steady and unchanged. I thought this was all I could expect from life. Then one ordinary Tuesday, something felt different in the garage. The air itself seemed to change. In the middle of the usual smell of fuel and oil, a young woman walked in. I did not look at her face. I did not feel curious. To me, she was just another customer with a broken machine. Without looking up, I asked what was wrong, already thinking about how to fix it. She spoke, and her voice was calm and gentle, very different from the loud sounds of tools hitting metal around us. But I did not pay attention to how she sounded. I focused only on the problem and the repair. When I finished the work, she did not leave immediately. She looked around the garage, noticing the old tools and the dirty, oil-covered floor. Then she asked me if I liked my work. I did not answer her. I only continued working, letting the sound of my tools speak instead of me. She laughed softly. It was not a loud or sharp laugh. It was quiet and smooth, almost like the sound of the river flowing at night. I thought I would see her only once, but I was wrong. The very next day, she came back, this time without any broken car. She stood in the doorway of the garage, bringing a sense of brightness into a place that was usually dark and dirty. I tried to ignore her, hoping my silence would make her leave. But instead, she calmly said she just wanted to watch me work. I didn't understand why she was interested, and I didn't give her permission, but she stayed anyway. She stood quietly at the side and observed. Day after day, she kept coming back. Slowly, she became a regular part of my otherwise lonely routine. Even my father, who was usually serious and distant, seemed a little warmer when she was around. But I stayed careful. I did not let my guard down. Still, without realizing it, I started thinking about her more often. One evening, I saw her near the river. She was standing alone, looking at the water as the sky grew darker. She asked me something simple, but important: "Do you like the river?" No one had ever asked me a question like that before. It made me feel something unusual, a quiet movement in my chest. I nodded, and we sat together without speaking. The silence between us felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. I kept expecting her to eventually see that I was not worth her time and leave, but she never did. As time passed, our connection slowly grew stronger. She paid attention to small details. When I refused coffee, she started bringing me tea instead, saying lightly that I worked too much. My father seemed to approve of her, which only made me more confused about my own feelings. In the evenings, she would sit on the old bench by the river, not asking for anything, just wanting me to be there too. One night, when the sky glowed with a deep golden color, I finally asked her why she kept coming back. I told her she was wasting her time on someone who barely spoke. She answered in a simple way. She said she wanted to be there. When I argued that she didn't really know me, she looked at me as if she could see past my defenses. She gently suggested that maybe I was wrong about myself. She spoke about my fear that people always leave, and somehow, she understood it without me explaining. For the first time, the silence between us did not feel like a wall separating us. Instead, it felt like a bridge connecting us. The next day, when she offered me tea again, I accepted it. I held the warm cup in my rough, tired hands, and I noticed something had changed. Being alone no longer felt completely safe. It started to feel more like I was trapped inside it, as if my solitude had quietly turned into a cage. She slowly became an important and steady part of my life. I began to notice that I was waiting for her each day. Without meaning to, I would look toward the door of the shop, hoping to see her walk in. This felt strange to me, almost like I was breaking my own rules about staying distant from people. One evening, she arrived later than usual. During the time I waited, I felt an empty, painful feeling in my chest. It was unfamiliar and a little frightening. I realized then how much I had started to depend on her presence. When she finally came, she gave me a small, simple box. Inside it was a silver key hanging on a cord. It was not expensive or decorative, but it felt meaningful. I did not understand why she gave it to me or why I deserved it, but I kept it with me all the time, like a small object of comfort and protection. As the days passed, we began to talk more. Our conversations became longer and deeper. We spoke about life, about leaving places, and about what it means to belong somewhere. She told me that home is not just a building, but a feeling you can find with the right people. At first, this idea was confusing, but slowly I began to understand it. Even my father noticed something and quietly said that she cared about me. His words felt both heavy and comforting at the same time. One afternoon, heavy rain poured down and covered everything in gray. The garage felt cold and empty, almost like a lifeless metal box. Then she came in, completely wet from the rain, shaking from the cold but still smiling gently. I gave her a towel, and as she dried herself, she asked me a simple but difficult question: did I ever feel lonely? I tried to say no. I tried to hold on to the belief that I didn't need anyone. But she softly reminded me that I had allowed her to stay in my life. Outside, the rain made loud, steady sounds on the roof, but inside, the space between us felt warm in a quiet way. In that moment, I began to notice small details about her. I saw how she moved her hair behind her ear, how calm she seemed, almost like the still surface of the river. Then she asked me something that I could not answer: if I leave, will you miss me? I was afraid. I did not respond. I let silence speak for me, hiding the truth I could not say out loud. But she understood anyway. She looked at me and smiled a gentle smile, but one filled with sadness, as if it carried the feeling of heartbreak. The next morning, she did not come back. The garage felt painfully quiet, as if all sound had disappeared. Even the river nearby seemed slower, as though it had lost its movement. I spent the whole day pretending that nothing had changed, telling myself that her absence did not matter. But by evening, when I went to the river, the empty bench felt like something had ended, like a place holding a loss. There, I found a small, crumpled note she had left behind. In it, she admitted what I had been too afraid to say: she knew I would miss her. And she was right. I held the silver key she had given me, turning it over in my hand. For the first time, I truly felt the weight of my loneliness. For years, I had protected myself by keeping distance from others. I believed that closing myself off was the only way to avoid pain. I built strong walls around my heart, thinking that staying alone would keep me safe from loss. But she had not forced her way into my life. She had not broken those walls. Instead, she had waited patiently until I slowly opened the door myself. Now she was gone. And I was left in a space that no longer felt empty, but full of something new: feelings, memories, and light. The hardest part was this: I no longer knew how to return to the darkness I had once called comfort. I used to believe silence was my shelter, that loneliness could keep me safe. But she showed me something I was never prepared for. That opening your heart doesn't just let love in. It also teaches you what it means to lose it. Now the silence is still there, the river still flows, and the world hasn't changed. But I have. And the truth is,